It's actually better to not be too wealthy. It's better to be middle class. And if that sounds crazy to you, let me explain. What's going on, guys? So 3 different levels, right? You got poverty. I don't think that's a good situation to be in. If you're born into poverty, obviously a lot of obstacles in your way. It doesn't offer nearly as many opportunities, and there's just a lot more disadvantages if you're born or live in poverty. If you're in the middle class, I would argue that that is the best place to be. And if you are born into a lot of wealth, there's actually a lot of problems there that you don't face in the middle class, and I think the upside doesn't actually outweigh those downsides. Now, I'm sure that you have some friends who are wealthy, or you know some people in school or in your class, or some colleagues or people on social media, whatever, you know some wealthy people. And initially on the surface level, they may seem very happy. They may seem to have it all. Oh my God, you know, his dad bought him a new Porsche and she got a new, you know, whatever. The thing is, when you actually talk to a lot of people that come from wealthy backgrounds, on average, they're not any happier. In fact, they have bigger problems usually, or at least very different problems than what you and I would face. So there's 2 common situations. First, you got the trust fund babies, and this is where essentially the person doesn't need to work for the rest of their life. Their family, there's this family wealth that they're going to inherit and they're taken care of. They don't need to work at all. And I know some people like this. It sounds great initially, but there are some problems. So first of all, you're going to face that existential crisis much sooner than anyone else. And dealing with that when you're pretty young is challenging. This is why you see a lot of people who are born into wealthy families getting involved in like drugs and other not so good things, because it's harder to find meaning and purpose in their life. So someone like me, I gotta find a job, I gotta work. And medicine was my calling. And I mean, we respond to incentives as humans. So if I was a trust fund baby, would I still have the drive and the push to go through, like, to work really hard as a pre-med and then work really hard in med school and then match into plastic surgery and do all that? I don't know. I mean, if I knew that I could just like coast and chill and still be taken care of, maybe I wouldn't have the same level of drive. So I would argue that if you are born into a lot of wealth, it's harder to be as ambitious, as driven, and to find purpose and meaning in your work. You're kind of forced to find that elsewhere, and that's more challenging. Now, the second situation is family business. So let's say your mom or dad started this wildly successful family business, and now as you're getting older, you have the choice. Do you take over the family business or do you not? You take over the family business, that's what you're supposed to do, right? Your family is happy, you're gonna make good money, your family's gonna be taken care of, your kids, etc. And you don't really have a choice. Because if you say no to the family business, then you're gonna be disowned, your parents aren't gonna be happy with you, they're gonna be pretty upset. And chances are you probably won't make as much money, won't be as comfortable. So what a lot of people do in that situation is they feel forced to take over the family business. Oh, boo-hoo, you had to inherit your dad's, $2 million per year business or whatever it is. It sounds great, but what if you really want to be an artist, or you want to be an actor, or you want to be a doctor even? Those options become much less appealing when you have the proposition of a business that maybe you don't enjoy, but is a lot safer, it's gonna pay better, etc., etc., etc. So if you are born middle class, I would argue you have this opportunity to light that fire under your own butt and make something meaningful. And here's the thing, people talk about money and happiness. And if there's one thing that annoys me, it's when people talk about that one study, the $75,000 per year income is the plateau for happiness. It gets misquoted so many times. But I made a video on the Med School Insiders channel summarizing the actual scientific literature, including that study, accurately, and how it relates to happiness. Turns out net worth is a better measure than income, obviously. And there were 2 interesting findings that came out of a recent net worth study. And the main one I want to highlight is that being self-made resulted in higher average levels of life satisfaction and happiness compared to a windfall. So if you win the lottery or inherit a lot of money, you're gonna be happier if you earn that. And that kind of makes sense when you think about it. So this is my apartment, right? It's 1,400 square feet. It's not crazy luxurious, but it's like way nicer than the other places I've lived in ever since I moved out of my house. And every time I walk to this apartment, especially see my bedroom, which by the way is way better than Jason's bedroom. Jason's my roommate, his room is... I get this deep sense of satisfaction because I know the blood, sweat, and tears. I know the hard work that went into earning this. This wasn't handed to me, I earned this. I paid for college on my own, then I paid for med school on my own, then I paid off my student loans, and now I'm here. And it feels so satisfying, and no one can really, the only way to really get that feeling is by earning it. There's no shortcuts. If someone hands me $100,000, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm happy I have $100,000, but I don't get the accompanying deep satisfaction that comes with it. The reason I'm making this video is because it's so easy for us to get caught up in these victim mentalities, these victim mindsets, where we see how life is unfair, where we see how, this other person has it easier, and why is my life so hard, and and this sucks. But when we actually stop and think about it, it becomes really clear how lucky we are. Even something as simple as not being born into massive wealth, I think that's actually an advantage. At least that's the story I tell myself. It helps me sleep at night and it makes me happier. But when we stop to actually think about how awesome our lives are, so like I just finished a 48-hour fast and I ate that first bite of food and it was so satisfying, and I'm so grateful to be able to eat the foods I can eat, especially after Crohn's disease when I had to be so restrictive, and at times I still need to be restrictive when I'm flaring. Just being able to eat good food, oh my God, it's such a joy, such a pleasure. You know, not being born into massive wealth, that's actually an advantage. I feel so much more driven and like motivated. I'm like, I'm gonna do something big with my life, and I don't know if I would have that if I was born into wealth. And here's the cool thing. Whether or not you believe my arguments, that doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you get to decide your own narrative, your own story, your own beliefs. But you alone decide whether or not those beliefs serve you or not. And obviously this belief that I am better off by being born middle class and working my ass off and working 6 months in the library in 11th grade so I could buy my first laptop, I think that story serves me. And at the end of the day, only you will decide what story you take. So you can choose to be a victim and say, you know what, life's unfair, or you can take ownership. What's it gonna be?